My name is Justin Sundell-Thomas, and today I'm going to show you how to make Bimuelos, which are a delicious little fried dough donut treat that we make for Hanukkah. So they're very, very easy to make, and it's a basic yeast dough. So we're just going to use flour, water, sugar, salt. You can use eggs, but my partner is allergic to eggs, so we're going to substitute some ricotta cheese. And the reason we're doing that specifically as our egg substitute is that my family is Italian, and ricotta donuts are a really classic Italian treat. So it's like a cultural mashup. I'm going to start by mixing some warm water with my sugar and yeast. And if you can use instant yeast, which is what I have right here, or you can use active dry yeast, and it doesn't really make a difference in the recipe. If you're using active dry yeast, it's more important to let this whole mixture sit and bloom for about 10 minutes, and it'll start to get bubbly. I'm just going to mix that all together. And the water is just, it's just warm tap water. We have a well, so our water doesn't really have any treatment in it. If your water is very chlorinated, you might want to let the chlorine evaporate out by letting it sit for a few hours and then warm it back up. Since I have instant yeast, I don't actually need to let it sit for 10 minutes. So we're just going to mix in the rest of our ingredients, and it really is as simple as just mixing in the rest of our ingredients. Got some flour. Some salt. Yeah, so the ricotta is a substitute, so I'm just going to approximate the volume of an egg to mix in here. And then I'm going to whisk it all together until it's nice and smooth. And this is going to be a pretty loose batter at this point. It's not like a bread dough or something. Just get any big lumps out. Great. And then we're just going to cover that and let it sit for about an hour, and it'll get all puffy and bubbly. You can use plastic wrap, or if your bowl, actually I might have a cover here. I do. Yeah, so if your bowl comes with a cover, that's great, but you can also plastic wrap, a moist towel would work, and just let it sit someplace that's warmish for about an hour. Okay, so while our dough is rising, we're going to make some syrup. The traditional way to eat Bimuelos is drizzled in this great cinnamon honey syrup. And the way that we make that is just with honey and sugar and water and cinnamon. It's very easy. I'm making a half batch today. Because there's only 2 people in my household and we can only eat so many donuts. So I'm just gonna mix this together while it dissolves and then bring it to a boil and let it boil for a few minutes. And with anything that's sugar that you're heating up to a boil, you need to be careful because it gets very hot. I think it might actually be worse than oil as far as the potential for hurting yourself goes. So use a nice high pan. Relative to the amount of liquid you've got, and stir it pretty regularly so it doesn't stick and burn. This syrup is really open to interpretation. There's a whole bunch of different versions of it. So you can make whatever flavor really speaks to you. This is really classic, just honey and cinnamon, but you could add some other warming spices. You could add like some ginger and cardamom. You could add some orange peel if you wanted it to be orange flavored. Whatever speaks to you as a flavor addition for your donuts. And this syrup is going to be a pretty thick, like almost maple syrup consistency, because it has more sugar in it than water. So it'll have a nice drizzle when we put it on our donuts. Well, see, that's why you need a high pan. I'm just going to let that boil and stir it occasionally for about 5 minutes or so the cinnamon will really infuse into it. And then let it cool. This is nice and thick now. Now that it's cooled. So it's been about an hour, and in the meantime we've heated up some oil. And for frying most things you want your oil to be around 350 to 375. And I have this handy candy thermometer. But you can use, if you have an instant read thermometer, you can spot check and get a pretty good idea that way as well. And then we're going to scoop it. You want to round a tablespoon size scoop, and so I just have this cookie scoop, which is great for sticky things. But if you don't have one, you can use just a tablespoon, and you can dip it in a little oil first to help the dough keep from sticking. Alright, so I'm just going to scoop right into the oil. And you don't, with any frying project, you really don't want to crowd your oil, so since I have a pretty small pan, I'm just going to do maybe 3 at a time. And you just want to let them fry until they're nice and golden brown on all the sides, and you can sort of flip them around as they go. They'll puff up really nicely. While these are frying, I guess I'll talk a little bit about frying in general. So like I said, you want the temperature to be around 350 to 375, and any sort of oil that's okay with high temperatures and doesn't have too much flavor is fine for this. You could use canola oil or vegetable oil or peanut oil, whatever. You could probably use light olive oil. I wouldn't recommend using something like an extra virgin olive oil to fry your donuts. It has too strong a flavor and it'll get bitter when it's too hot. And with all deep frying, you always want to make sure that you never fill your pan more than a third to half full with oil, so that there's room for it to bubble up when you drop things into it. Alright, so now these are nice and brown and crispy, and we're just going to take them out and drain them for a minute on some paper towels. If you fry at a high enough temperature, it shouldn't be too greasy on the inside. The crust that forms pretty quickly will lock out the grease from soaking into your food, so most deep fried foods aren't super greasy if they're cooked right, but you still want to let some of the oil on the outside drain off. and let them cool off enough that you don't burn your mouth when you bite into it. Now that they are fried and have cooled off a little, you can taste them. As you can see, still hot. Not sure if that steam puff shows up on camera, but they're still nice and toasty in the middle. If you want a fancy presentation, like if it was a different year and you were having a Hanukkah party, you could drizzle your syrup over the top and then sprinkle it with some chopped up nuts like pistachios or walnuts, or pepitas if you have a nut allergy in your house. But if you want to be more casual, you can also just dip. Oh yeah, that's very nice. It's delicious. So as you can maybe hear, it's got a nice crunchy outside and the inside is super fluffy. Yeah. So that's how you make bimuelos. And I hope that you do try to make them at home. They're really easy to make. And stovetop deep frying is really pretty safe. Just don't let anyone too small assist with that part. It can help mix up the dough. They are best if you eat them while they're still warm. If you let them sit for too long, it won't be quite as good. But you can keep them warm for a little while in an oven if you want to. If you want to fry them all in advance and then bring them out. So thanks for watching this video, and I do hope you try this great recipe at home because it's really delicious and wonderful and one of our favorite Hanukkah foods around here. The best kitchen helper.